Montgomery that might come in.
Yeah, we can go ahead and call the meeting to order at 4:30. Do you want to go ahead and do a roll call?
Sure. Linda Bushbaum.
Here.
Callie Cordova.
Here.
Catherine Cox.
Here.
Michael Gilfrey.
Here.
Bruce Katuna.
Here.
Catlin Keenan.
Here.
Tom Kurtz.
Here.
And so absent is Bruce Montgomery, Bob Lee, and Susie, our liaison.
Okay, thank you. And then do we have any public to be heard? And then has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from February 19th? Is there any corrections? Okay, can I get a motion to accept? Catherine, second. Bruce, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. And then I think accessions.
We also adopt the minutes for the February 27th meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, we
Okay.
Yeah.
For the joint.
The
The joint.
Okay.
meeting.
I don't believe we were given those to review, were we?
I have.
Oh, I didn't see them in the email, so. Has everyone had a chance besides me to look them over?
Looks like it's in the back.
Yeah.
Correction, I was absent, so I'm not listed as present either, but
Okay.
that.
Okay, so just adding you to
Just
absent.
add us.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there a motion to accept the joint meeting minutes from the 27th? Second. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Thank you. And then we don't have any accessions?
And then we do have a couple of accessions and one de-accession.
Okay.
So those are sort of obscure terms. Accessions means things brought into the collection, and de-accessions things put out. Thank you. Great. So we have a 1982 map of Longmont. I don't know if any of you saw the article that was in, I think, the Times Call and the Denver Post and several places that Elizabeth was looking for a better condition copy of the 1980s sort of cartoon map that she had found in a barn in not great condition. We didn't, unfortunately, get any copies of that map, but we did get several other maps donated. So we have this one from 1982. Then there is one from 85, 86 that was a commercially produced map with all these ads, which are kind of fun. Around the outside, the Twin Peaks Mall, that was brand new. And then 2004, 2005, a little bit more of a cartoon type map of Longmont.
Dillard's.
And yeah, so we still have Dillard's.
Before your time?
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of fun. What a neat map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were pretty popular back in that time frame
Mhm.
around the country.
Yeah, there were companies that
Yeah.
produced them.
They covered the United States, I think,
Mhm.
that in the 80s or whenever that was, 90s.
Yeah. And then one more accession. This is an abstract or title. So they show the history of ownership, all of the different changes in ownership. This is for 1712 Spruce Avenue. So if anyone happens to be wanting to research 1712 Spruce Avenue, we've got the abstract for you, assuming you all approve. Any questions on any of these donations?
No.
Right, well,
Okay.
anyone?
If we don't have, any questions, do we have a motion to accept these accessions?
Sure.
Bruce, second, Linda, all in favor? Unanimous?
And we have one de-accession. So these were donated by Beatrice Hover, for whom her family Hover Road was named, and she was involved in setting up Hover Home and other things. But these are, basically printed pages, facsimiles of Gutenberg Bible. So they really don't have any Longmont connection particularly. But because the St. Vrain Historical Society does own the Hover Home where she lived, they are interested in having these if we did de-accession them. So seems like a more appropriate place for them since it's more directly tied to her as an individual and not so much to the history of Longmont. Any questions on this one, de-accession?
So these are essentially copies.
So,
But
yeah,
any
they
idea
were.
when?
It might actually, if we could read this bottom part
that
here,
little
I
wrong part
think
it might say.
it might actually say when they were done. I don't think they're terribly old. They might even be. I'm not going to hazard a guess
Yeah.
because I don't know, but certainly not Gutenberg era. They're-
Right. I would assume not. They're cool. But yeah, let the St. Vrain Historical Society have them. I have no problem with that.
Is that a motion?
Sure,
to
I
accept this
motion to
de-accession?
de-accession these.
Is there a second? Catherine, all in favor? Unanimous? Alright, and then report of the director.
Okay. Let's see. So, our big news is we are waiting. This time next week, we will have bids for museum expansion. So they'll be coming in March 26th. That's been a long time coming, and we're excited to hopefully finally get through with all of the planning and working and start actually moving dirt. So just a reminder that we are still actually working through some of the city approvals. So we decided to go out for bid because the city approvals probably won't change much in terms of the actual construction. It's basically a little bit of the drainage issues are the main thing they're working with.
Aside
Yes,
from costs, what would the city be looking for during the bid to choose one of these contractors?
So the contractors that are bidding on this, we've already pre-qualified them, which means that we've already vetted them. So normally we would look at, are they able to do the job? Are they, a reputable firm that's not gonna, disappear one night? But we've already gone through that step. So in this case, it's mostly cost. The only other things that we might be looking at would be if there are a couple of firms that are very close in price, then we would kind of look at, let's look at how they priced things. Is there anything one firm might have missed that we would need to go back and say, it doesn't look like you have anything in your bid for, this piece that's, like one of the things that's in the bid is a donor wall that will be on the, in the new entryway, and that's kind of a complicated thing that, it's like, oh, we want to make sure that they're putting enough money aside for that in the bid and things like that. So if they're saying, oh, we can do a donor wall for $1,000, like, donor walls tend to be kind of expensive because there's lots of different plaques and lettering and things like that to really make them look nice. And that's just one example. We'll go through, if it is, significantly less with any one particular firm, then we probably pretty much going to say, okay, we're good to go with this firm, and we'll just have to work out if there is anything that we feel like, maybe they missed this. We'll go back and make sure that they've got everything in there that's correct. But primarily on price, there are 7 firms that were interested as of I think 2 weeks ago, when we had a visit by the contractors to the museum to look around and kind of check things out.
So all 7 came to visit.
6 of them came to visit, and the 7th one also expressed interest. They just couldn't make it that day. So yeah, I will. Hopefully, we'll have a big announcement of yay, we're gonna do this. We have structured the plans so that there's kind of 3 options. There's we build everything we really feel like we need, and then there's options to reduce in 2 different areas. Not adding on to our workshop and doing a smaller feature gallery, just depending on where the bids come in. So we've kind of hedged our bets a little bit so that hopefully we will be able to move forward and not have to go back out to bid or struggle with we didn't all of the bids are higher than what we have funding available for. So we're crossing our fingers that we'll be able to move forward starting next week. Anyway, as I was saying, we would actually be starting construction, we're thinking in June. That's when we're estimating the city process will be done. So we will be announcing soon, I think in our next program catalog, that we'll be extending the Picasso exhibit since it's kind of our last traveling exhibit. So we'll extend a little bit later in May so that we can still have folks coming in as long as we're don't have the galleries torn up yet.
Okay, so you guys built that into how you borrowed that exhibit, is that it's flexible on its end?
We reached out to them when we discovered, we actually have a couple weeks more that it could be open, and because we didn't think it was going to another museum. That's usually, if it's already booked at another museum, then there's no flexibility. But if it isn't, then usually they're happy to extend it for, of course, a fee. So we're paying a few $1,000s more for 3 weeks more. So we're really pleased to be able to do that. It's been a very popular exhibit so far. Just going through a few other things. So those of you that had a chance at the joint Friends Advisory Board meeting to come up to the West Wing offices afterwards, you saw some of the exhibition concepts that they're developing. There's 12 different ideas that they're working on now. Some of them are pretty much, we've got a prototype ready to go, and others are still much more in concept phase, but some really cool ideas coming out. And then right now in Golden, there is an Indigenous Connections Summit. That's actually where Elizabeth Bodwin, Curator of History, is. And tomorrow, both Jared Thompson and Ann Macca will be co-presenting about working with Indigenous groups around. We had the Duality exhibit a few years ago. And we've gotten some, I was down there for part of the conference today, and we got some great kudos from some of the folks that were there that, were really working with Indigenous communities in positive ways. And so that was good to hear. Let's see, under collections, I already mentioned the Denver Post article that generated the maps. I will just note this bullet about Kevin Thompson, the retired archaeologist, is researching. We have a large archaeological collection, the Fry Tallman collection, that has been in the museum since the 1970s, and is, as with a lot of archaeological collections, can be challenging. A lot of the material doesn't really have specific provenance. A lot of it was collected, by private collectors who weren't really documenting in great detail. This is where this came from. So we've struggled over the years with, does this collection really have any value, especially because the majority of it does not come from the immediate area around Longmont. It's kind of all across the western U.S. But our volunteer feels like, it actually has some value as a research collection, and actually has some value in some kind of interesting ways. He was able to determine that a number of the stone points, Folsom points that are in the collection, he's actually been able to determine the person who made them. And as you can say, well, wait, those were made thousands of years ago, weren't they? No, these were made in the early 1900s. They are replicas. And we actually have the name of the individual now that made them. So, it adds sort of an interesting aspect of, these were, made for a market of people who were wanting what they probably then, presented as original Folsom points. But we now know, who made them and why they made them. So
Interesting.
It's kind of adds a lot to the data on that particular collection. Under Art in Public Places, they just dedicated a very cool artwork in a new Clover Meadows Park over on the southwest corner of Longmont. It is two very large, basically spoked wheels. It's a park that has a lot of bicycles in it, and so it's kind of a homage to bike gears and things like that. But the gears are about 6 feet tall, so very fun. Kind of a fun new public art piece in Longmont. Under auditorium programming, we set a record in February with over 1,200 people in attendance. A lot of great programs, and another great month in March with the Boulder International Film Festival here. Also, really strong attendance for that, the strongest we've had since COVID. In development, we are continuing with writing a number of grants, and we are still working through the capital campaign. Even though we are starting construction, we will be continuing to raise funds primarily for fabricating exhibits. That's kind of where our focus is going to be moving forward. Yes.
Could that make up for the potential loss of funding from your email with the grants potentially being canceled?
So that's certainly one of the reasons why we are continuing that funding. As I mentioned in my email, we applied for a $250,000 federal grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. That is an agency that President Trump has had an executive order to eliminate. So that's something that over the years the museum has received hundreds of thousands of dollars from that institute, and its loss would be a loss, for all the museums in the United States. And it was a congressionally authorized organization, so I think it's very much an open question as to exactly how the president has the power to eliminate something that was authorized by Congress. And that will be for the courts ultimately to figure out. But certainly any support you can give, contacting your representatives to express your concern about that is definitely helpful.
I guess my question was, we don't expect that to prevent the opening of the Children's Gallery.
No, we will move forward regardless.
Okay.
You know, it was a grant application. We were certainly not guaranteed of
Okay.
getting it, so we always had contingency plans if we didn't get that grant. It would, you know, have added a lot of enhancement to that gallery, and you know, if we don't get it, we will certainly continue to raise funds around it, and this may be an opportunity to, you know, some additional fundraising. That, you know, this is a program that we could have relied on that now we need to go back and find that money elsewhere. But we did have contingency plans in place in case we didn't get it.
Cool.
So,
Thank you.
and visitor services, can see, you know, Lego had really strong attendance in January, and then Picasso picked up with, you know, even stronger in February. So we're really seeing great attendance right now. And marketing, you know, we've gotten great coverage on the Picasso exhibit. We've got banners downtown. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, then please check it out, because it's a great exhibit. And I think the last thing I'll just mention is, so since our longtime history exhibit, Front Range Rising, will be coming down as part of the museum expansion, since we'll be renovating both of the existing galleries, including the one where it is. Courtney Pletcher is going to be doing some data collection in April to kind of do a final evaluation of what do people love about that exhibit? What do we make sure that we retain in whatever new exhibit we bring back when we reopen? And also, you know, what do people miss? They feel like, oh, what would they want to see that this exhibit doesn't have? So we will be opening the museum, or actually a few months after we open, we'll be installing a temporary history exhibit based a lot on our Longmont 150 exhibit from a few years ago, while we raise funds and do planning, do consultation with lots of different groups, indigenous groups, and other groups in the community about a longer term, essentially new permanent history exhibit that probably wouldn't get installed at the earliest till about 2028. So start the process with that. So, any questions on the director's report?
So the exhibit based on Longmont 150 and what you guys have already done would be that placeholder until
Mhm.
2028.
Yeah. So it'll be up. That's about 2 years. Anticipate having that. I'll also just note, I included in your packet, just more for information than anything else, the attendance over the last 3 years. You can just see pretty much across the board increases last year. And earned revenue totals for 2024, again, over $400,000 in earned revenue coming in. And then just to give you a sense, Lego was pretty blew everything else out of the water in the last few years. And even what's really a better representation of the popularity of the exhibit is the average daily attendance. And Lego is at 103. Picasso is actually almost exactly the same right now. Now it's early in its run. We expect it will probably decline some, but it's great to see such strong attendance.
As a huge tiny house fan, I just put out that was during the pandemic, and it's
Yes.
still pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yes. So yeah, some of those earlier ones were still pandemic time, so we're
We can't judge them. Of course.
right.
Yeah. I did enjoy how the vegetables in the house, in the tiny house, they got more and more bite marks as time went on. The kids.
Fake vegetables.
It's an interactive.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, God.
All right, well, that is all I had for my report.
Thank you. I do not have a report from the chair, but we do have a couple pieces of unfinished business that we're going to cover.
So, at the joint meeting, we did adopt the Code of Ethics, but we neglected to get everybody to sign it. So hopefully everyone had a chance to take a look through the Code of Ethics that was adopted at the last meeting.
I have clean copies. Catlin already signed it, Linda signed it, and Tom signed it. So you can forego yours, but they need the rest.
Okay, I'm like, why are there so many? Pass them.
Thank you.
And as I mentioned at the joint meeting, this is kind of the first step, one of the first steps toward being accredited as by the American Alliance of Museums.
I forget what else do you have to have. There were like 4 or 5
There's
things.
5 core documents: mission statement, which we have, a strategic plan, which we adopted the most recent one in 2024.
Mhm.
A collections policy, which is something we have, but probably should do a double check. And so I've asked Elizabeth Bodwin to just kind of check on that, see if there's anything that needs brushing up, and if so, we'd bring that to this board for approval of a revision. And then the other piece that we're working on, which is more of an internal staff document, is an emergency plan. Our emergency plan is at this point very outdated, and so we need to update it before we can kind of feel like we've got all our ducks in a row to move to the next step. But we've got a team on the museum staff working on that as well.
Yeah, I think it seems like the collection plan we reviewed in the last couple of years at some point.
Yeah, we did.
So yeah, there's so yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape. Really, the Code of Ethics was the big thing. It was like, wow, we don't have that at all as a museum, and so getting that adopted has been a really good feeling that we've got that in place. And now, if there's ever ethical questions, we've got a real document we can refer to, and just kind of like, oh, what do we think? Is this an ethical situation? And so yeah, it's good to have.
I read it with my best ethics professor lens.
Ah.
I teach ethics.
And you what?
I teach ethics.
Yeah.
So I read it with my best
And you read it?
ethics professor lens. Nothing raised my eyebrows.
So I would like to read it before, and I haven't
Okay.
seen this.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah,
Well, I
feel
was
free
I
to.
read it last week apparently. So what should I do? Take it home and read it?
Yeah, you can take it home, read it, and then if you want to just scan the signature page, send it back. That's fine.
Can I borrow a pen from someone?
Do you want pink?
Sure.
Can you sign it in pink? That one's black.
Pink works.
And then
Yeah, then I think our other piece of unfinished business is the joint meeting follow-up. And so at the joint meeting, we had talked about like more collaboration between the two boards. And I didn't know if people had a sense of like who would be able to or interested in attending the Friends Board. If there's a way that people want that kind of organized, what we're thinking in terms of that.
They meet at noon on the third Thursday, so they always meet the day almost always meet the day after the advisory board. They are talking about potentially reducing the frequency of their meetings, maybe every other month or quarterly. They'll be meeting tomorrow to discuss that, so don't yet know what their decision is going to be on that.
Where?
They usually meet right here.
Right here, at the same place.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be good to have an organized approach to dividing it up for those that can attend
Oh.
from this board, so that we know in advance when we might be our turn.
Sure.
I know this meeting is sort of when it is, so that there's some overlap with the employees of the museum. Is that requirement there for their meeting as well? Because if it was an evening meeting, I'd be more likely to make it. But middle of the day, sometimes hard to do, particularly 2 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That, I think, because a number of the folks there attend that meeting on their lunch hour from
I see.
from work, so it works out best for the folks that are on it now to have a noon meeting. It could certainly change in the future, but that's what they've expressed works.
So right now, I can make that time work. But my schedule potentially changes every semester. So I'm trying to remember what my fall schedule is going to be. And I do have Tuesday, Thursday classes, but I think they're in the morning.
And we may find out if they're meeting tomorrow, like
Right,
you said.
then they may
that
move.
They may change.
Right.
So I
Or
can-
quarterly, so
Yeah,
that would be
that-
just 4.
Maybe we should wait to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think we should, and
Okay.
then we can, on our next meeting, we can make a plan if they have something.
Do we feel like it needs to be the same person every time, or could we sort of rotate it or trade it? Do we care?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like given the fact that it's in the middle of the day, a work day,
Really?
like if it was monthly, like I guess I was kind of envisioning maybe even just like a Google Sheets,
Like sign up?
like sign up. We list all the meetings,
I see.
and then
Sure.
we would try to like spread it between whoever could. You would sign up for it in advance, so we would have an idea of who was
Right.
there, and then that person could report back.
That makes a lot of sense.
Either through me if you want, or they could just report back during the meeting.
Yeah. And are they thinking about sending someone to our meetings?
Yes.
They are. but
Yes.
I
mean-
think so. That's also on their agenda to
That's
discuss
on
for
their
tomorrow.
agenda.
Okay. Okay.
They do provide lunch, so you would get lunch.
That's good.
I'm going.
Feed me and I shall attend.
So that's where our donations go.
It also sounds like they're in a little bit of a state of flux, just with their normal mode of operation.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask for maybe more information on what's happening to the Stewart Foundation.
So the Stewart Family Foundation, which is not the Friends of the Museum, but the Stewart Family Foundation.
Well, it
uh,
certainly helps them.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it sounds like they spend their
um,
money.
So, always after Lila Jean Stewart passed away and the foundation came into existence, they had always said that their goal was essentially to disperse all of her estate and then, cease operations. That they had not planned to be a ongoing foundation. And at this point, the trustee has shared with me that he thinks this year is probably going to be the last year for the Stewart Family Foundation. So, they've been incredibly generous and certainly far more even than we expected. But it does mean that there's significant revenue that was coming in from them, and also so they had about 4 years ago given the Friends of the Museum $1 million without really a designation on it, and so for the last 4 years that money has been in the Friends account generating interest, and they'd used a lot of that interest to then support, museum programs and so forth. And as we were coming up on kind of, okay, we're going out to bid, the Friends very generously agreed that, the best use of that funds really was to, complete the construction project. And that was, I think, certainly very much in line with what the Stewart Family Foundation had thought that ultimately that money might be used for. But that does mean that, there is no longer $1 million generating interest in their account. So that's why, things are shifting a little bit. But again, that's only been there for about 4 years. So the Friends have been around a lot longer than that. And so we have every confidence that they will continue, and it's a really strong board right now. And I feel really good that they're going to be able to, continue to meet their mission of supporting the museum. Does that answer
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I mean, I just was curious. I had what was going on with it. I assumed the funds were dwindling down based on what was said at the joint meeting, but
So, yep. It's been an incredible organization, and left a huge impact on not just the Longmont Museum, but also many other organizations, TLC as well. Got their building that they're under construction now on is strongly supported by Stewart Family Foundation money. So hopefully other folks in the community will be stepping up to emulate the example of their charitable work.
do you know approximately how much funding we have received as an entity at the museum through the Stewart Foundation, through the Friends?
Through the Stewart Family Foundation, I believe it's about 7.2 million, I think. And then the Stewart family, before there was a foundation, I think that's another 3 million probably.
Wow.
So
That's
close to 10
incredible.
million between the two. We'll have to double check. We have a spreadsheet on that. We track it but I think that's
That's a lot.
correct that if it's wrong for the record. But it was very, very significant. So.
So it sounds like we need a meeting scheduled from them.
Okay.
And then we'll figure it out.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
You had said the Picasso exhibit was going to be extended. Do you know how long, or not? Because you don't know
Be
if it's
through
committed?
May 25th. So
Oh,
another
good.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I
New
think,
business?
yeah, move on to new business, and then we had a couple points you wanted to talk about there.
Yeah. So the first one, so this year, 2025, is the 25th anniversary of the museum doing Day of the Dead, Dia de Muertos. And when it was started 25 years ago, it was really looking at, the museum does very little programming that reaches out to the Latino community. And we have seen Day of the Dead grow and expand, and it for many years was held here at the museum, and it outgrew the museum and moved to downtown. And the last year or two, it's been a great, it's continuing to be a successful event. But we're definitely noticing, like in sponsors and things like that, that folks are being a little less willing to sponsor it, and we're kind of exploring the idea that the 25th will be the last year that the museum is a major partner for it. We're excited about potentially having some of those resources that we've devoted to Day of the Dead for new opportunities. We're starting a discussion around maybe having a group that does a cultural event incubator where every couple of years we have a new cultural event that we work with a different group in the community to kind of work with them to start a new event. That's one idea that we're kind of exploring now. But our feeling is that we now have a lot of programming for the Latino community, and we will certainly continue to have Day of the Dead programming, our Noche de Museo program. We're intending on continuing. But just it's feeling like, maybe the 25th anniversary is a good time to, kind of release it out into the world. There may be another group that picks it up. There's, potentially interest from some other city departments or city divisions in picking it up and, taking it in new directions. It's something we've been talking about, and so I wanted to bring it to you all. Get any thoughts that you have on that approach. We're still certainly planning to do it this year, so we've got a little while. We're just kind of starting the exploration of this as an idea for the
How
museum.
much does it cost to produce that?
It's about $30,000 a year.
It's not too bad for what it is.
So, it's certainly we run a very lean operation. We do get support, like the Longmont Downtown Development Authority pays for the road closures. Otherwise, that would be a very expensive part of it. And there are some sponsors. Next Light has been a sponsor, Elevations Credit Union, but those are both kind of stepping back their sponsorship in more recent years.
So would someone else be running it, or is it being canceled as a result of this decision?
Well, if someone else steps up to run it, then we would happily work with them to run it in the future. But if no other organization steps up to run the big festival, then this would be the last year for that festival.
So how, is it entirely run by museum staff other than getting help closing roads and stuff like that?
We do hire a contracted event coordinator.
Okay.
And we've done that for about the last 3 years, 3 or 4 years. So it's not all on museum staff, although that's certainly an impact on museum budget. But essentially, all of the coordination, all of the volunteer acquisition, all of the band booking, all of that is done by museum staff. And it's one of the things that we lost a little bit when we moved out of the museum and into downtown is people don't necessarily see it as a museum event anymore. They kind of see it as, it's a downtown event, or it happens. There's other organizations that are more prominently located nearby that they may say, I think they're the ones running it. And we certainly get support from those groups, but the majority, almost all the real hard work is done by museum staff.
So it's not being run by a Latinx organization in the community, or
correct. There is
partner with them.
there's an advisory group that we work with. That certainly they do some great things. Marta Moreno, for those of you that know her, does all of the food trucks. So there's definitely an involvement and work from that committee, and I don't want to downplay their role. But the coordination of all of that happens within the museum staff.
So you're going to do it for November the 2025.
So be October the 11th, I think, is the date. We've moved it earlier. We did that a couple of years ago, mostly for weather reasons.
Have you had discussion with the other groups that are involved in doing
That
this?
was
They said,
kind of our first step was talking with some of the individuals and then the committee. So we had a meeting with the committee about 2 weeks ago. They were disappointed. They certainly that event is near and dear to their heart. there was not like a really strong like, oh my gosh, this event has to keep going. You have to find a way to keep it going. It was more, disappointment. A couple of other factors that come into play. Every year we have the altars in our atrium.
Right.
Because of construction, the atrium is going to become the museum lobby for the next in 2025. And then in 2026, we will be opening the museum just about the time that we would normally be doing the altars. And so staff is going to be crazy busy doing all the other exhibits and things. So we would be looking at 2 years of not having altars at the museum, pretty much regardless. That's something we can't really change. So that particular piece is something that is going to be going away for the next 2 years at the museum. Right, because that's just based on construction.
This might just be my reading of it, and I don't know how it's been communicated elsewhere, but when I read this, it made it sound like it's still happening, we're just going to be less involved. And so, like, if the decision is actually, like, this thing is being canceled, you might feel differently about that, then we're going to be less involved. Does that make sense? And I don't.
Yeah,
So as long as
that's
everyone knows what's happening, that's fine, I guess. But like,
and I have to say, it's still a little bit up in the air because there are other organizations, the library, these youth center, both do Day of the Dead,
Yeah, they can pick it up.
and the senior center has expressed some interest in doing it. We haven't gotten like a formal commitment of yes, we're all in on supporting the big festival, or they may want to say yes, we will do something, but it's going to look different, and that's most likely. I think what will happen. I think some kind of Day of the Dead event will continue to occur, or multiple events.
It's just such a nice turnkey event. It would be nice if there was a museum liaison that could work with some of these other groups to pass the baton.
And that's certainly what, we're absolutely, offering to these groups. If you would like to pick it up, we will totally support, and, in years going forward, we would support that transition. So, we're definitely hoping that happens, but I cannot speak for, those organizations to see if they're willing to pick it up.
Does the group, the committee or whatever task force that looks at this to develop it, did they have the impression the museum definitely is giving it up, or that if somebody else picks it up, that'd be great?
We definitely said absolutely. If someone else picks it up, that would be great.
But then that would give me the impression that if nobody picks it up,
It goes away.
it either goes away or we're going to continue it.
And that is, we tried to make it as clear as we could that this is really the last year that the museum is running it.
Okay, that's
just
similar to my. I think it's a similar impression. Okay.
Yeah, so the 2026 will have to be in somebody else's hands.
Right.
Or not happen.
Or
not
happen.
Is there a organization, a Latin organization that participates and does things for,
There are several that are involved, but none that I think, that was sort of our first question is, what other organization could pick it up?
Right.
And we approached several that we thought, they might be, interested in picking it up, and none of the sort of outside city organizations felt like they had anywhere near the capacity to take it on.
They probably don't have the funding and the staffing to run an event like this.
Yeah, that really does. How much does the city council? Do you get any funds from the council? Or,
we don't get anything that's designated specifically for Day of the Dead, so it comes out of kind of the museum's operating budget. And that's one of the concerns is, a few years ago we were able to, sponsor, and pretty much, the sponsors took care of most of it. And as we're seeing those sponsorships drop. Now, I will say we are also trying a new approach where there's more of a joint sponsorship package that's actually being led by Sam Calhoun out of the Recreation Division, and so we're excited if Sam is, she's been a great fundraiser for recreation events, and if she's able to kind of pick that up and raise funds for that, then it makes it even more attractive for another city division if it's like, the funding is actually there. And I think from the museum perspective, we just kind of feel like it's time to try something a little different if we can. But we're also, this is why we're having these conversations now, because if we get really strong feeling from the community that we really want to see the museum continue with this, then we're certainly not absolutely no. We could certainly reevaluate.
But logistically, it's not going to be very. I mean, with the lobby being in the atrium for a while, and
right, there's some things
like
we can't
lose
do.
Some
we will,
flexibilities on what to do.
The altars, that one we can't do for 2 years. But the festival, now the downtown festival, is kind of
I think the
bigger
downtown,
question.
Because it's now downtown, the festival. It used to be in this building that we used to do, because I remember coming, and I loved it. I think that's something that, if it's an outdoor kind of thing, it really should be shared by the council. The council should be picking up the bill and funding. And getting and organizing, because it's an outdoor event. It's no longer here, except for the the altars. And the altars could be somewhere else. They could easily be in the Longmont library.
So we've definitely offered. Downtown has done altars in some of the storefronts, and so we've offered that we will kind of work with anyone that has done altars in the past to see if they're interested in doing it elsewhere. It'll be a different experience than being in the museum. Yeah. And I will also mention that Councilmember Hidalgo Faring, who couldn't attend tonight, did notice the item on the agenda and said she'd like to talk with me about that. So I will certainly talk through this with her.
We have a great restaurant called Teal Cali now that just opened up, and they're a big restaurant, and it's right smack in the middle, and it really, there could be like a restaurant, getting the Mexican restaurants getting together and doing something, having a walk, a paseo, all around and celebrate the Day of the Dead through the restaurants and have music.
Who hosts the other, like the art walk and most of the events that happen on Main Street where they close down and have other events? Who hosts those? That Downtown Development Authority? Is that?
All of them are different. So
okay.
Art Walk is the Firehouse Art Center.
Okay.
Cinco de Mayo is done through the Children, Youth, and Families Division of the city. The parades are all recreation.
Downtown Longmont or whatever it's called. So.
I mean, my initial reaction to this was like, oh no. But it does sound like for a lot of reasons that this decision makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're just suddenly pulling the plug on it. It's going to happen this year. There will be a transition period. Other people have been invited to pick it up. There's lots of support if they do, like we'll help you get it off the ground. I mean, it's culturally significant because we do have a large Latinx population here. And I also see why moving it off the museum's plate makes sense for a number of reasons.
Yep.
Especially over the next couple of years.
Right.
Right. I definitely think because they're doing it downtown, it really should be picked up by the council. Downtown, Longmont and council.
I think you said something along the lines of like if we get feedback that the museum really should be involved, like we take that into consideration. I don't think we're likely to get that feedback, but if people heard it's being canceled, there would be feedback. And so decoupling those, that's what would need to happen. Channeling that energy now rather than when it gets canceled. Yes.
giving people ample opportunity to pick it up and
Yes.
become involved.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, just
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
If they think we're still gonna do it if nobody else picks it up,
Yeah.
but you're saying you
No.
didn't give them that vibe.
No,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
said, this is our last year.
Yeah, okay.
It's a great event,
now the
and
ball
we
is
are
in your
happy
court.
to
Right.
support someone else
Right.
doing it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Great. So next, Kiki Ball. So this is a new event that we are trying this year that could potentially be controversial. So I wanted to let you all know. It'll be June 21st. Kiki is a event that arose out of the New York City LGBTQ trans scene in the 1970s. It was developed partly around LGBTQ, trans, Black, Latino, people of color. It is a kind of a part of dance competition, part of runway, fashion runway event. There are families that come up and compete. The costumes tend to be very, very elaborate. Some of them involve nudity, although we're going to request that this one probably not involve nudity.
Maybe
but,
PG, not.
Yeah.
Although we are suggesting that we are planning that it be 18 and over.
Okay.
Just because
And it's gonna be held here.
it will be held here in the atrium. It's something that we are working with Rocky Mountain Equality, which is formerly Outholder. We kind of had the idea of, well, let's do it, and we talked to them, and they were like, yes, we will do this, we will take it on, we've got the right person to run it, which is great, because we were sort of like, it's a cool idea, we're not sure if we can put it together, but they're like, yeah, we can do it, we can, so we're excited about it.
When is it slated for?
June 21st.
June 21st.
It's going to be the Solstice Kiki Ball.
Have you gotten any pushback?
We
Because
haven't
of
yet
what's going on with
announced it publicly, so
Well,
yeah.
I'm just saying because of all the stuff that's going on with the diversity being.
I mean, some, from my limited knowledge of Kiki, from after hearing we were going to involved with it, I researched it. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, I
Hate to
know.
say, I'm too far out of it, I guess.
Oh, I didn't either.
But
until it came up.
anyway, I did see that some of their music, and I think we need to be cautious of that, is certainly not family. The lyrics are not family
okay.
oriented. They're pretty
Raunchy.
yeah, raunchy.
Raunchy is a good word.
Raunchy.
Raunchy is a good word.
And,
Yeah.
I would hate to see our reputation as a family centered.
That's where the 18 plus would help.
Yeah, 18 and up.
Yeah.
But and how did we get involved in this?
It actually
I
was
know
a,
you just said
a
that
suggestion from staff. Several staff members said they attended one last year, and they were like, "This is such a cool event. We should do it at the museum." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, we should. It's actually a really cool cultural type thing that we should make it happen." And so yeah, it was basically staff starting, and then the partnership with the Rocky Mountain Equality was just because I think we would have had a hard time putting it on this year. We were kind of
Right.
like, okay, this sounds cool, but we would have probably needed to take at least a year to build relationships and get involved enough that people would kind of trust that, okay, this is a safe space. But Rocky Mountain Equality being behind it and basically driving it, it feels like, yes, we can get the folks that will be the runway and the dancers and things like that to come up.
And what kind of capacity do you think the event would?
The atrium will fit about 180, I think. So And it'll be like all on the floor. There's not like a raised platform or anything. That's kind of the tradition of how it works. So wanted to give you all a heads up. We are putting together some talking points, and I'm happy to share
We're going to
those.
have a parade too.
So it'll just be so
Just
it's
an indoor event.
indoor event.
Or an outdoor
Nothing.
one, yeah.
Nothing outside the museum. Nothing.
Oh, nothing
else.
outside. Okay.
Yeah.
So nothing in the courtyard is what you're saying?
Right. No,
Yeah.
because we do kind of want to keep this
Yeah,
contained
yeah.
and since it is a ticketed event, if you don't have a ticket, no, you won't be able to come in. So hopefully that will limit anybody who wants to be disruptive.
Is there a concern about disruption? Like, does the museum have security? That's a question I don't know the answer to.
I think Joanne's responsible.
No, Joanne will just bounce him right out.
Early on, when we were talking about it, we had said, well, yes, we would anticipate having a police presence just for security. I actually need to circle back around now that Rocky Mountain Quality is involved and see if that's their recommendation, because there was part of that I thought that could be good, or that could be off-putting for.
There's the Longmont police will occasionally send in off-duty officers who are in plainclothes who basically volunteer. They're like, yeah, I'll work that event, and they are not. You would never even know that they're there.
Well, maybe they'll blend into the
They might join
to
our
the runway.
Exactly.
This is like a great setup for a movie or something. Miscongeniality, but like.
Yeah, and
The queer version.
as it happens, an interesting sort of maybe happy coincidence. So my boss's boss retired,
Oh, yes.
and they have divided temporarily while they're searching for a replacement, divided up our department among various other city leaders. And so at the moment, recreation and culture is actually under public safety. So my boss's boss is actually the public safety chief. So, gives us a little more. And I met with him and gave him a heads up that, we are doing this. And he didn't have any no, don't do that. He was like, okay, well, send me the talking points and I'll be glad to know. But yeah, he was certainly not
Has
opposed
this
to it.
group had a ball in the area in the past?
There
number of
have
years?
been Kiki balls in Longmont. I don't know how long ago, but there have been some in the past. That was one of the things when we were doing the research of should we even do this. So,
I can get a couple of the front range security folks to come in plain clothes. Just bring them with me. They're big and trained.
So you said you are developing talking points because I'm sure there's going to be questions. We're giving up one event that's pretty much family oriented and sponsoring or working with another group that's not as maybe widely accepted. I don't know.
Well, for this particular event, it's adults only.
Yeah, it sounds like it's ticketed, so
Yeah.
Right.
revenue
Yeah.
neutral, probably.
So-
or positive even.
might even be positive. Yeah, we were figuring revenue neutral at best, but depending on exactly how we arrange it with Rocky Mountain Equality, yeah, we could maybe even make a little. Probably just break even for a first
Will there
year.
be concessions? Is that a thing that you've talked about?
I believe so. I believe that's part of the event, but that's a good question.
I would definitely assume that there would be.
I mean, I would like to drink when I come.
Yeah.
I mean, raunchy,
Yep.
adult-oriented drinks.
Yep.
Seems like
Yeah.
They're going to have drinks.
absolutely.
You're going to have liquor, and you're going to have food, and you're going to have costume competition.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a whole lot of stuff, and and I don't know about the concession if you Usually at a ball, I don't think they're usually that kind of thing. If you're having a meeting or something like that, that's when you do concessions. But that's going to be up to who's ever running it, if they're going to do that or not.
So yeah, we'll definitely work with those folks. But,
Oh my God. You better have good police presence. That's all I got to do. That gets wild.
You had mentioned you haven't gotten any sort of pushback because it's not public yet.
Right.
When and if that happens, we should be prepared for it because it would look really bad if we announced it and then unannounced it. We should not do that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I know that happens sometimes. And
Yeah.
That just looks bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
So yeah, we will definitely. We're working on the talking points now. We've let city leadership know about it, and
Well, and Rocky Mountain Equality is well versed in
Nice.
handling this type of thing. They're a great partner.
I don't know if it's at all worth doing something that is more akin to what City Council does if we want to have a printed sheet of the number of people who can do public invited to be heard, and that when the sheet is full, it's done, and it's a limit of 3 minutes per person.
you're thinking for an advisory board.
For
meeting?
us. I know that other advisory boards that get many more public invited to be heard have a pretty strict 3 minute per person limit, and that is kind of a standard operating procedure at other boards
That's a good
in
point.
Longmont.
Yeah.
We don't do that as much because we have very few people come to visit us.
That might change.
But I think if this were to change, that maybe we want to kind of just adopt the similar policy that we see other boards
That's
doing.
a good idea.
That is a good idea. The other, I'm on the state board for community colleges too, and their policy is also that the board does not respond to public.
Yes, that
They
is
thank them. Thank you for your time.
that is
That's
the
it.
official policy.
Yep.
Yes, and we have. I think because we've only had very friendly people, we have not followed those rules
Right.
before because
Time to
we've
enforce
mostly
it.
been like, oh, that's such a great idea. We're so happy you're
Yeah.
here. And it's been very like congenial and conversational. But the official rules for our board are that we do not respond to public comment. Yes, that is true for our board as well.
Perfect.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last item is we're getting ready for advisory board recruitment. The application is out there. They are due April 18th. So we will need committee, I believe it's a committee of 2 from the Museum Advisory Board to interview candidates and recommend to the board and to City Council candidates for
When all things up.
What's that?
When all arm
Well, I was just going to ask that. It would be,
Yeah.
how many positions do we
Yeah,
have
are we
available
open?
this time? One?
let's see, Jan, do you have?
The position, the terms that are up are Linda's, Catherine's, and Bruce Kay's.
Okay.
And have they all done one term?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
So they,
Well, Bruce is, some of you finished out
yeah.
unfinished terms, so Bruce was just appointed, but his term is up.
So do they, I can't remember, do they have to reapply?
Yeah.
So I have to reapply.
But they all are eligible to reapply
Yes.
if
Correct.
they want to. Okay.
And
So-
how do we do that? Online?
Yep. And I'll send you the link.
Okay, send me the link so I can do it.
So potentially we won't have any new members.
Well,
I mean, if,
no, anyone from outside can also apply.
yeah, but I mean potentially if they all get reappointed, the 3, there's
Then they're
3
going.
slots
Right.
that are expiring, 3 positions, and all 3, as Callie asked, can be reappointed. Can be.
They can be among appointments from anyone else coming.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
why we
understand that.
interview.
Sure, I
So,
understand
so
that.
there's definitely a chance that there would be new people.
Could be.
coming in.
Well, I don't know. definitely strong, but it depends. Maybe some of them might not want to reapply. I don't know.
This is true.
You know. And
But those 3 people are not eligible to be on the subcommittee.
Correct.
Do you have to abstain from voting when we make the recommendation, or no?
Um,
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I think in the past people have abstained from.
That
This
would
is
make the most sense.
Yeah, this is me just
Yeah.
being curious, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, I vote for myself. Absolutely.
Or I don't vote for myself.
Yeah.
Could go that way too,
Or
I
you
guess.
just for future, it might be helpful if we had one sheet with all the board members' names on them and when their expiration date is. Because I actually don't remember.
I feel like we
We
have
have a
that.
roster I send out periodically.
Here,
I'll
yeah, I've
resend
seen
that.
it in the past.
I will
Yeah.
resend the roster.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
could,
send it out.
because I can't remember when my term. I might end this next year. I don't know.
I believe yours does.
Yeah. Okay.
And what's the term limit, and does it apply to for full term only, or only partial?
It's you can serve 2 3-year terms,
Okay.
and if you are filling a partial term, then you're eligible for the full 2 more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think, or there may be some. Is it halfway through a term, or is it?
Yeah, I'll get that
Yeah.
clarified, but I think you're entitled to 2 full terms, which means consecutive 6 years. I think the only person coming up that will be term limited is Tom next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we just wanted to put that out there and maybe get the subcommittee, or you thinking about it. And then I've already emailed the link to Catherine, and I'll email the link to you guys.
Okay, but if we don't meet again until April, is it pertinent to have the subcommittee formed now so that interviews can?
No, it's not essential to have that now because interviews would be during the month of May.
Okay. Okay, so we will try to form that next time.
So I'm trying to think, Callie, you were on the you and Bob last, and then I think Bruce Montgomery and myself the time before.
Yeah. So I think if you
So it
haven't
looks
been
like
on one
it might
before,
be.
And
I can
Linda
do it.
and I did it together.
Yeah,
And
we
then you
did
did
the
it
first
too,
time.
so-
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah.
I can do it.
So it's got to be you two.
Well, just to share the wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it.
And we did have preset questions or something.
Yes, we did.
yeah, there's
we've
a
got-
rubric
Yeah.
to
There,
fill
there
out.
is something to ask. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm very familiar with rubrics.
I was gonna say, I know Catlin can do a rubric. So.
I'm on it.
There's a slight risk of me going off script, but that's fine.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
Especially if somebody says something interesting.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta follow it.
Okay, so I think that sounds good. And then do we have any other board comments? Things the
I have
board
a
wants to
question.
address?
Is there any follow-up on the storage facility roofing lawsuit?
Have not heard anything more. So I assume it is working its way through the legal process. I think, as I recall from what the lawyer told us, is she said, yeah, there'll be a few months of back and forth filings and things, and then at some point, hopefully the parties will come to the table and solve it in mediation. She was pretty confident that's what would happen. But, said there had to be a few months of filings first before the insurance company, who is really the one that's actually behind, the contractor that we're suing. It's not the contractor that's going to be involved. It's their insurance company. So they want to know we're serious before they're going to come to the table.
And there's a tour of that facility coming up, right?
Yeah,
On
March
a non-rainy
27th.
day, I guess.
So actually, they did a repair late last year. Since that, we really have not had any issues. It was kind of a temporary repair that long term they will have to replace the entire roof, but the roofing company said this temporary repair will hold you for a couple of years until you get it resolved.
But it will require replacing the entire roof.
Yeah, because the membranes have separated. There's water that's gotten in between some of the roofing layers. So it's not something that you can just, fix long term. You can do a temporary fix that'll hold it for a while, but it'll come back.
But that might require like moving everything out of that area.
No, luckily they don't have to peel off the roof deck. It's just the layers above it. So, as long as they do it on a day that isn't rainy, they'll just peel it off. And we'll still have to tarp a lot of things because inevitably when you do that, dirt and stuff comes
You're
down.
talking about a new roof? You're talking about a new roof that has to be put on?
On our museum storage facility.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And you're working, do we have a insurance? We have an insurance company we deal with, right?
The city has insurance, but it did not apply because this was a contractor defect. It wasn't caused by hail or anything. It was
Oh, okay.
caused by
Okay.
poor design or
Understand.
poor construction.
Irritating.
Yeah. 7-year-old building should not need a new roof.
No.
No, you shouldn't
It
have a
really
problem with the
shouldn't.
roof.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? Linda? All in favor? Okay, we are